Hey, this is Garrett with Sympliact. Welcome to this video today. In this video, we're going to look at the end-to-end flows and interactions for the situation where you want to invite a new practice to the platform. So a practice that's does not yet have an account on Sympliact, but a practice within your network that you share a mutual patient with that you want to invite to the platform. So quick lay of the land. I've got my Sympliact practice dashboard on the right of the screen. On the left, I have a couple of email inboxes that we'll look at as we go through this process to see how the other practice, how the patient in question are getting notifications as we collaborate and invite folks to collaborate on their care. So we're going to start in our Sympliact practice. In this case, we're in the test practice, hometown oral surgery. The provider and user is John Smith. And the first step in this process is actually entering the patient's chart itself. That can be accomplished in a few different ways depending on the situation. So if the patient is on our schedule, we can enter directly from the schedule, which we'll look at in just a second. If it's a patient that's not on the schedule today, but we want to enter an existing patient, so I can search for that patient either by name or by date of birth. And if it's a completely new patient that we're wanting to collaborate on, I can hit this add button, enter the patient's information, create patient button will pop up. I can create the patient and the system will take me directly to their chart. As I mentioned, in this case, we're just going to enter this patient's chart and go through the process. So in this case, Jared Jackson, if I click on that appointment block, I have the ability to enter a profile screen, health history screen, or go to a care thread screen. In this case, I'm just going to first go to the profile screen because we're going to create a care thread, which we'll see next. So once I'm in the patient's chart, I can go to the care threads tab. And in this case, we're going to create a new care thread to collaborate on a new piece of care. So I'm going to hit new care thread, top right. It's going to take me to the new thread. I'm going to expand the header. I'm going to name the thread. So in this case, we'll say painful 231. I can add additional details if I want to. I can add an assigned provider. This is all for internal use. It's not necessarily going to be super pertinent to the referral itself. And then I'm going to close that header. And now we can populate the thread with any pertinent files or notes. So one thing we'll do is insert an exam note. So I'm just going to copy and paste our clinical note from this interaction. In this case, I've just pre-populated one to make it nice and smooth. But this is John Smith's clinical note. We can also upload any pertinent files. So hit the add button, bottom left, upload file. And in this case, we'll just upload a Panorex. I'll hit open. As I do so, we see in the top right, there was a loading animation. It shows that it's complete, and we got a message at the bottom of the screen that the file was uploaded. So now there's our Panorex on that thread that can be used by the provider that we were referring to. And so now I've got a note, I've got a Panorex. If I had a clinical photo, if I had a screen video of, let's say, implant planning, or I had a cone beam data set that I want to upload and share to that other practice, I can do that via that same interaction, or a PDF, or any sort of attachment or file that I want to share. That can be done right there. Next step is we're going to go to the same add button, and we're going to add a collaborator. So when we go to the add collaboration request interaction, we have a to field. So if it's somebody that already exists in the system, I can just select them. But in this case, we're looking at how do we add and send an invite to a new practice. So let's say I want to collaborate with Hometown Endo, and they don't yet exist in the system. I can hit this add button to the left. It's going to ask me to search by practice again that I'm wanting to add. And again, they don't exist, so I hit the add. I can enter the practice's email address. This is how they're going to get the invite. So test. We're going to just send a test email, and this will go to the email address inbox that I have over to my left, so you'll see what happens. So I can enter a phone, but it's not required. Enter a fax, it's not required. So we'll just, for now, just enter the two required pieces. So practice name, practice email. I'm going to hit create. And then I can add any providers if I want to, but I don't have to at this stage. And then we're just going to select this as our collaborator. So it adds that new practice. I'm going to say this is a referral. Comment is optional. Since we already have our clinical note in the thread, might not need to add an additional comment, but we'll add one just to show here. Please evaluate tooth 31. Status we'll keep as routine, but we can upgrade it to urgent or time sensitive. And so we send that request. We can see that it populates to our thread, and we can see that we have two emails over here, which I'll show you what those are in just a second. But we've sent a collaboration request from John Smith to Hometown Endo, which is the practice we just created internally. We can see that at the top in our header too. It's in a pending status because that practice doesn't technically exist yet, but we'll see how that changes in just a second. And so at this point, we're going to go over to, well, first let's look at our Sympliact inbox outbox. So we can dig into this deeper in other videos, but we have an incoming or inbox for our Sympliact dashboard that shows any requests that have been sent to us. So in this case, for instance, from City General Dentistry to John Smith. We also have an outbox here, which should show that one that we just sent. So it shows that it's time sensitive, patient name, and the information. And again, it shows that it's in a pending status because this practice doesn't technically exist. If I click on that, it's going to take me to that thread. So now let's hop over to the email inbox. So this email inbox I'm in currently is for the test practice that we just created. So you can see they get an email when we create them, and when we add them to a care thread, they get an email. So Hometown Oral Surgery, the practice that we're in over here, has invited you to collaborate on Sympliact, and they have a button that they can click, which we'll do in just a second. I'm going to switch to a different inbox, and this is the patient inbox. We'll refresh, and so we can see here that the patient will also get some notifications whenever we add a collaborator to one of their threads. So they'll get an email, which we see here. So if I open that email, the patient will see that we've added a collaboration request, and that gives them a message just reminding them that we've asked Hometown Endo to collaborate on their care. And it gives them a link to the patient application if they need to go there to register or to review the thread, etc. The other thing they're going to get is a text message. This is just a different example of what they would see. We didn't enter the phone number for Hometown Endo in our particular case. You can see there's no phone number for the actual email they get. But if you enter if you enter the phone number when you're creating Hometown Endo, the patient will also get within the text and the email, they'll get the contact information for, in this case, it was for City General Dentistry, but again, in our case, it would say Hometown Endo and give them their phone number that they can click on their phone, and it will dial directly to that office so they can go ahead and establish care. And it gives them a link to the patient application similar to the email. So that's an example of the SMS or text message that the patient will get whenever you've recommended that another practice collaborate on their care. And this is an example of the email minus the phone because we didn't put one in our particular use case. So I'm going to go back to the practices email. And like I mentioned, the email that they get inviting them to use the platform after you've added them on your side, they can click the button in that email and it'll take them to the interaction that allows them to log in if they had an account, but in this case, again, they don't, so they can create an account right here. So a very quick process. They're just going to enter some basic information about their practice name, their primary office location, their office location's email address, their phone number. They can search their address for this location. And then they'll add information about a provider. They can either search for a provider. In this case, we'll just enter the information manually. But if they search for the provider, all of this information will be automatically populated for them, aside from email and things like that. But their name, their MPI number, all of that stuff will be automatically populated to make it as easy as possible for them. So they're going to enter their email address 2 times to ensure that we have it accurate. They'll enter their MPI number. They'll search for their specialty. They can review the terms of service, agree to the terms of service, and then they can create their account. So super quick, super easy. They've created their account. If we jump back over to their email inbox, they should have an email. Okay, so they get an email. In this case, Susie gets an email because that was the initial provider that was created. So it lets them know that they've successfully created their account, and it allows them to set their password. So we'll set Susie's password so that they can get access to their account. And boom, so they're ready. And then it'll redirect them to the login screen. Okay, after that initial user resets their password, it will redirect them back to the login screen where they can now log in using that email address and the password that they just created. But before we log in to their new account, we're going to jump back over to the practice account for Hometown Oral Surgery. And what we're going to see here is that when Hometown Endo created a practice, if we come up to the notifications icon in Hometown Oral Surgery, click on it, they got a new notification that the system found what the system thinks is a potential match for Hometown Endo. So if we click on that, it's going to take us to the admin section, the internal practices admin section. And it's going to show us, this has a ton of different possible matches because it's a test practice. But down here at the bottom, and in a normal practice, there's usually only going to be this most recent one. So there'll only be one instead of this long list. But if I expand that, the system is going to show me the different information that I have for those practices. So the internal practice, the one we created earlier, versus the practice, the real practice, the one that Hometown Endo actually created. And so we can confirm this, yes, this is indeed the same practice, and we'll confirm it. So those 2 practices now get merged. So what that means is if I go back to my SimpliSync inbox, go to outgoing, we can see that that collaboration request for Jared Jackson is now in a new status because the actual Hometown Endo practice is now connected or invited to that thread as opposed to the temporary internal practice that we created in order to invite them. So if we click into the thread, we can also see that the status has changed here to new. So we know that that practice on the other side now has that collaboration request. So if we log in to Hometown Endo for the first time, actually it's going to make me log out. So let's log out of Hometown Oral Surgery. And then we'll just log into Hometown Endo with that user that we made. And when we log in for the first time to Hometown Endo, we can see they've already got a request to collaborate. So if they click on this, in their inbox, they can see an unread incoming request on Jared Jackson that we sent them. If they click on this request, it's going to give them details on the patient, the care thread that they're invited to, and any information that we entered on the collaboration request itself. They can review all of that. They can elect to accept it. When they accept it, they're going to be immediately merged or attached to that thread. So they now have, again, Hometown Endo now has access to my clinical note, or to John Smith's clinical note, that is, to the Panorex that was uploaded to that thread, or any other files that were uploaded to that thread. They also have access to any medical history that we've confirmed. So in this case, Dr. Smith confirmed the allergy section an hour ago, medications an hour ago, a month ago on that medical history. So the system's giving them access to that same data that, again, they can potentially use from a registration standpoint, so the patient doesn't have to re-register for an appointment with them. And they can also get good validated data that we see that Dr. Smith has confirmed. Same thing on the demographics and insurance data. So systems showing them this is the information entered by the patient a month ago. This is information, in this case, Dr. Smith confirmed an hour ago. So they have good medical insurance data, good dental insurance data, demographics to contact the patient, health history if they want to leverage that data. So theoretically, if desired, and this practice is using it to its full capacity, the patient could potentially be registered before they even reach out to the practice because of the shared access to this data. So within the care thread again, now Hometown Endo can populate it with data as indicated during the treatment, and they can message back and forth. So for instance, let's say in this case we said it's Susie Porter. So let's say Susie Porter sees the patient and wants to collaborate or communicate back with John Smith. She can mention John Smith. So at John Smith, I saw the patient and we plan to perform an RCT in 2 days, or whatever they want to communicate on. Obviously, you can post that to the thread, and we'll go back into Hometown Oral Surgery in just a second and see where that populates over on their side. But the Hometown Endo can also upload files. So let's say they take a cone beam while the patient's in the office and they want to upload that data set because they evaluate the patient. Actually, 31 is not restorable, so they're going to send the patient back to Hometown Oral Surgery, or they want to upload files for the general dentist to use. So they treat the tooth and they're going to upload final PAs or final treatment letter, things like that. The general dentist could be added to the thread. So Hometown Endo can add a collaborator. So let's say they want to include the general dentist in all of this communication. They want to upload files. Same thing that we saw in Hometown Oral Surgery can be done on Hometown Endo's side, and allows for quick and easy collaboration. So let's log out. And then let's log back in to, I'm going to close that window. Let's log back in. We'll go back to our other window. Let's log back into Hometown Oral Surgery. And at the top, John Smith would have received a notification. Susie Porter has asked John Smith to review a mutual thread. So we showed how to ping another user on Hometown Endo. So Susie Porter said at John Smith. John Smith gets a in-app alert. If he clicks on that, it takes him to the thread in question. He can see that note from Susie Porter, and he can do the same thing back. And the other functionality here is there's two icons here. We can choose to include an off-platform SMS or email along with this notification. So I'll show you what that means. So let's say I want to send Susie a text. I'm not sure she's in the platform, so I'm not positive she's going to see my alert to view that message in the app. So I want to send her a text to bring her attention to the fact that, hey, she should log in to Sympliact because there's a net message for her. At Susie Porter. Now clearly if I'm pinging somebody, I'm usually going to enter something that's actionable or something that's going to be value to them. So, you know, it's probably not something I'd ping them about just to say thanks, but we'll just use it as a quick message. So when I send that message, it's going to get populated here. It's going to send Susie the in-app notification like we saw for John Smith, but what it's also going to send, I have an example. This is not for this particular situation, but Susie would get an off-platform text message for it's not going to share any HIPAA protected information, but it is going to say who mentioned her and that she was mentioned so that she knows that, hey, I should potentially click here, log into the app so that I can view whatever, in this case, John Smith wants me to look at. So there's a lot more to this back and forth collaboration functionality, but that's kind of the high level basics for sort of the entry level communication and collaboration back and forth. This same mentioning functionality works in the practice as well, so it can be used as workflow streamlining and workflow optimization within the practice. So it's not uncommon that in my own practice I'm mentioning another provider or I'm mentioning a treatment plan coordinator at an outside practice, and at the same time I may mention my own treatment plan coordinator so that both of them are getting notifications, and then they can sync up from there and hopefully take that collaboration forward with or without me continuing to be involved. So there's a lot of different ways to dig into this that just really streamlines the flow of care, the flow of work in the office and across offices that we can dig into deeper. But hopefully this helps as sort of a first primer on how all of this fits together. Thanks for joining, and we will talk soon.